Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today is the Chinese corner for the Coventry University Confucius Institute. And today our focus will be on employability with our guest speaker, Nuo Xu. So before we begin, and while we wait for attendees to arrive and join us over the next few minutes, I would like to give a little bit of background on the Confucius Institute itself, who we are and what we do. So the Confucius Institute is a group that works within Coventry University, but our goal is to share Chinese language and culture across the West Midlands as a whole. And one of our central missions there is to provide language classes or Mandarin Chinese language classes, which are available for people of all levels and abilities. Those can be staff or students in the university, as well as for the general public. We also run cultural training sessions across the university, and they can also be available for local businesses and local groups. We organise and fund trips to China, which can be subsidised for students of the university, and we also try to support local businesses in building links to China. If you are interested in finding out what we are doing, please feel free to follow us on Twitter at Confucius Uni. Now, we also work with local schools, and to support local schools, we run live sessions on Facebook twice a week. Now, they're currently running Monday, Friday, and sometimes on a Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. And you can find them at facebook.com/Confucius Uni. So, in today's session, as I've mentioned, our focus is on employability, and we have a special guest speaker joining us from Warwick Business School. Today we have Mrs. Nuo Xu, who is a China-focused careers coach at Warwick Business School. And in today's session, we will be looking at many aspects of employability relating to China, but generally thinking about how we prepare students for their future work in UK or returning from China. And I'd like to remind everyone that we welcome questions. We would love to hear your questions for Nuo today. So let's welcome her. So Nuo, welcome.
Hi George. Hello everyone. My name is Nuo, and I'm a careers coach from Warwick Business School, and I've been working for Warwick Business School for the last more than 3 years now. And my specialist knowledge is about China, the China job market, and helping Chinese students.
Great. So I'd like to start with a bit of background, if I may. So my understanding is that in China, the careers sector or careers coaching is not a massively developed field. So how did you become involved in careers and working with supporting people in their careers?
Okay, I've studied for accounting for my bachelor degree, and then finance and investment for my master's degree, so it's not very related to careers coaching. But after working as accountant and financial analyst in China for about 7 years, and I just know that is not the area for me. I was quite lost, like many of the students I've met, and I'm sure there are students in Coventry University also have the similar situation. I don't know what do I want to do, but I know accounting is not what my interest is. So I start to try different things. I was a lecturer in a university for a year, and during the time I'm looking for the different area I'm interested. And then I find out careers coach as a job in a TV show called Parks and Recreation. And when I see that, I say, oh, that's something sounds really interesting. I want to learn more about it. And I was very lucky. I met a friend in a running club, and who's doing careers advisor training in Chongqing. That's the city I was in. And when she mentioned about that, I said, "Wow, that's something I was interested. So, do you mind I pop in?" And she invited me to the training, and I absolutely loved it. Then after that, I start to do more training and continue investing my time into this area. I become qualified, and then I start with some freelance job just to get one-to-one cases from friends and friends, and then start to get in touch with organization that do such coaching job. So after some experience, then I found this job in Warwick Business School and applied, and I got the job, and I really enjoyed so far.
Okay, so when you say that perhaps in China that there's not so many people and you weren't aware that this was a potential career for yourself, why do you think it is that China does not necessarily have so many services for explaining and showing Chinese, helping Chinese students choose their own career?
I think the situation is different now. When I was in university, certainly when I studied my master's degree in Nottingham at 2013, it's still a quite early, early on stage for the industry, and not many people are doing this type of job. And I think now more and more universities in China start to put effort and people into this area, and also lots of third-party agency, they see this as a business opportunity. So a lot of agencies provide job application training, or help students to understand the industry. This type of training is really growing, I can see. So I think the situation is slightly different, but I still think the UK university is doing a better and more deeper support to students than Chinese universities.
Okay, so thank you very much for this. And so this is your background. So I'm quite curious to know that now that you are working for the business school at Warwick University, so what is your role there, and what do you actually do to help and support students on a daily basis?
I think we basically support students through one-to-one coaching and workshops and careers events, which including careers events with employers. Of course, we do have a lot of contacts with Chinese employers and also the employers in the UK, and the careers fair and some competitions or some industry talks. Yeah, that's what we do to support students.
Okay, so does that mean that you are supporting Chinese students specifically, or are you supporting students from all backgrounds?
I'm supporting students from all backgrounds. So I mainly work with master students, and our students is all business background. So I'm supporting it's in the team of 4, we're supporting about 1,300 students. But because in business school, there is a large proportion of Chinese students. For us, it's more than 60%. So I of course, spend a lot of time with Chinese students. And because of my language advantage, I would say, so it's easier for me sometimes to communicate with Chinese students in Mandarin, and also I'm building contacts with Chinese employers. So I would say I do spend the majority of my time working with Chinese students and Chinese employers.
Great. Okay. And do you think that have you noticed any differences between perhaps the expectations of Chinese students or the preparation for Chinese students compared to the students from other countries, in whether they're prepared more for their careers? Do they have a better idea about what they want to do, or if they have a better idea about their career trajectory?
Do you mean between Chinese students and the students from other country?
Yes.
I don't see major difference. I would say I've seen very prepared students from like Chinese students and non-Chinese students, and I've seen very lost students from Chinese students and non-Chinese students. I don't see a huge difference between nationalities. But there are individual difference. Someone, they are just very ready and know exactly what they want to do and know the industry. They've done the research and they are clear about what their expectation from me. But also, students who are at a very early stage, very confused, like myself a couple of years ago, don't know what do I want to do and don't even know how can I help them. So I would say there are different degree or level of the students, but I think, no matter what, if the students come to see us, that is a very positive sign. Means they start to think about their career, start to really I think that no matter which stage they're on, we are really willing to help.
Okay, so I mean, this area of students deciding their careers, deciding their jobs, is something that's quite interesting. As you say, that you weren't aware that careers coaching was an option. So in China generally, how do people choose a major at the university, or how would many young students decide what sort of area they would go into, whether that is, in your case, accounting as a major, but for other students, how would they generally choose, whether it's science, arts, finance, or any of the other industries?
In terms of choosing their university major, I would say, yeah, of course, there are people, as I said, they're quite clear about what they want to do from very young age. But I would say majority of the people is probably their parents help them to choose. Like myself, I was really interested in psychology, but and education, but I think my parents say, oh, accountant would be an easier job option, and so I took their advice. I think that is a lot of Chinese students have a similar case. They choose the major because the parents suggest, or they heard from social media and other people think, oh, finance it's have a well-paid job, so choose finance. Yeah, that's I would say that's probably the place. I think the Chinese education system really need to improve from very young age, to introduce what's a real job is like, and introduce the opportunity to the students, let them experience or just have some idea about different jobs, not only focus on academic study.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's something that we've definitely heard before from people, that again, the academic study, when that is everything, it's perhaps not developing specific and practical skills. And I think that can help us lead on to what we're looking for, mentioning practical skills and academic preparation. My understanding is many recruiters and many employers are not only focused on academic performance when they're looking to choose applicants, but they would also be looking at skills, backgrounds, many other things. So in China, what are the sort of general expectations of employers for students, or sorry, for job applicants?
It depends on which area, because my background is mainly focused on business students, so my communication is mainly focused on with the business related role. So I I would say the soft skills is what they're looking for right now. Of course, graduated from a really decent university and a good GPA would give you a plus, but a degree is not enough for you to get a good job. So the employers would really want to see the evidence that you can communicate well, and you can work in a team well, and you have a strong leadership and business acumen, and your analytical skill is quite strong. Yeah, that's something is very commonly required for returnee students itself as a unique group. Like as I said, the data showed this year probably have more than 800,000 returnee students come from overseas back to China looking for jobs. So only have a degree from another country again is not enough for them to get a good job. But I still, based on my conversation with Chinese employers, a lot of employers show their preference of hiring returnee students, and they said, number one, of course, returnee students has show a strong English skill. So if you do study outside of China, make sure your English is good enough to communicate well with people. And then they've seen, the recruiters have seen the returnee students is more confident and more used to presenting ideas in front of the clients. That is why, look, I think the consulting firm likes overseas students, because there are lots of client-facing job in front of a client, so they see the returnee students are more comfortable to presenting ideas professionally and have a strong interpersonal skills. And also their international vision would really place a strong advantage for them, because they've studied in a different country and they've collaborated with the people from different background. You know, they have a lot of group work and they need to collaborate with other background people, and that enhance their team skills. And also they studied in a overseas universities, so they gained some vision, international vision, which would really benefit for the companies who wants to expanding their strategy in overseas. For example, like Tencent, their video game right now is really focused on internationalization, and also is Huawei and a lot of other ByteDance. So those companies who wants to expanding their market outside of China, and they would like someone who has an international vision, which our returnee students certainly showed advantage.
So generally speaking, then, as a sort of overall question, do you think if returning students or Chinese students who have studied in the UK, is it easier for them to find a good job in China than someone who has studied in a Chinese university?
I don't think I have a really yes or this is not a yes or no question. It depends on the students. It depends on you know, it's a university. If the local students is graduated from Tsinghua and Beida, and there is a tier 3 university overseas, then there is not comparison. It's really hard to compare. But what I can say is, based on the data I get, majority, I think it's including state-owned company, including private-owned company, Western firm, all of the companies, NGO, public sector, I think basically all of the companies that they showed us preference, except the government affiliated institution. So based on that research I've read, they don't show the strong preference, but the private with NGO and Western firm and also state-owned companies, they all showed preference to overseas students or returnee students.
Okay, so maybe not the fairest, easiest question. So while we're discussing this expectations of employers, I think something that, say, we've talked about this before and mentioned this. You've mentioned, I believe it's the 996. Is this the term? I know that there's perhaps some different, certainly a different working culture in China than in the UK, and there's certain different labor laws and different expectations for overtime and working. So, do you think that the expectations of the firms in China are generally met by or match the expectations for students studying in the UK?
There's certainly gap. Again, I think the individual case might be different case by case, but I think there are some gap in terms of salary expectation. Now I see more and more practical numbers from students' expectation, but still, like for the first job in tier 1 or tier 2 cities, that salary gap is still exist, and also the working hours, work-life balance, especially with a very competitive industry like internet, BAT, that Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, they've been, and now ByteDance, they've been famous for their long working hours, 9 to 6, and that's probably a lot of our students is not really expecting so long working hours, and especially when they see I think majority of the companies in the UK would have a better work-life balance, except from IBD, they are quite crazy as well. But for example, the Big Four in the UK, the work-life balance, I think, compared to the Big Four in China is better. So there is a gap between like the long hours of work experience, working hours would something we need to remind our students. And those long working hours is usually in competitive industry like internet, consulting, and also like finance, IBD especially. And sometimes I heard the top tier FMCG, some particular department, not all department, the marketing department or digital marketing department can have a lot of overtime as well. So yeah.
I do just want a quick ask. So could you just explain 996 in case someone's aren't aware of it?
996 means work from 9 to 9 and 6 days a week. And some company, they even say it's 8, 10, 7, or it's there are different ones. That basically means long working hours.
Okay, so do you think then that well, excuse me, do you think then that it might be better for Chinese students to find work in the UK?
What do you mean by better?
You obviously, if there is an expectation for students to have this work-life balance that's very heavily in favor of spending, you know, the majority of their life at work, then is it so? As an advisor, do you feel, or do you think let me rephrase. Do many students or Chinese students prefer or look for work in the UK?
Yeah, certainly. Every year we have a lot of Chinese students or non-EU students. Maybe I will change after Brexit. Certainly, a lot of non-UK students are looking for jobs in the UK. Yeah, that is true. And your question is this, what's the advantage? Like what we mentioned, the work-life balance in certain industries probably better, and usually the starting salary compared to the China market, yeah, it's also quite competitive. And also the working culture, I would say, for example, in state-owned company has a quite high hierarchy, but in the UK, I would say less hierarchy. So in terms of that, it's also students see that quite attractive as well. But really hard to say better, because it depends on what's your what are you looking for. Certainly there are more opportunities in China because the massive market and also the high rate of GDP growth and economic growth. It's which leads to more opportunities and more growth opportunities in China. And like in lots of industries, the leading companies are in China now. So in that case, I don't see it's better or not. It's really depend on what is that individual students are looking for. And when they are making this decision, they really need to think about, understand both markets, understand the certain industry and the companies in the both markets, and also understand the opportunity cost, the risk, and understand what's really important for themselves. What's their value and what's their career target, and then make the decision. So I think this is more like a one-to-one coaching topic if someone has really has a difficulty to make a decision.
Great, thank you. So I do like these questions. Now we have a question from our audience. Someone asks that developing an adequate English level is important for returning Chinese students, something I believe you've already mentioned. Yeah. But what are the employers' language expectations for Western students interested in working for Chinese companies? So if you are a non-Chinese looking to study in China, how important is Chinese language? I think that's the question.
I think if because like there are certainly opportunities in Chinese companies or the companies in China for non-Chinese students. If their position is opening to the non-Chinese students, I don't think the Chinese language is like a key criteria. Because if they want a Chinese speaking, they have plenty of them. And they must want something from you about, like, for example, I had a webinar with non-Chinese students from Alibaba last Saturday, and they are doing like copywriting and material designing for Alibaba business in non-Chinese market, but they work in China. So in that case, your Chinese speaking is not so important and won't be the key requirement, but it will help you to build rapport with maybe your line manager is Chinese, or to be blend in with the team. So that I think that would be a plus instead of have to have.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll just remind everyone, so if you are watching, please feel free to ask any questions that you have for Nuo. Now, excuse me. So we've been looking so far at the Chinese employers' expectations, and I'd like to sort of take a step back and now look at universities in the UK. Obviously, you found a position as a China-focused employability specialist at Warwick University, but I imagine that most universities in the UK do not have someone who with the same understanding of the China market as a specialist like yourself. So could you describe the China job market generally for graduate students who are coming back, and if there are any sort of differences between returning students or Chinese students returning to China, if there are differences in the application process, are there different timelines for applying for work? So
I think for the job application is quite similar as in the UK. It's for a standard one. It's online application, online test, and a telephone interview or video interview. And now everyone's doing a video interview. And then assessment center. That's quite standard. And sometimes the company, smaller company might only have a face-to-face interview or online interview after your CV application. So it's quite similar in the UK. In terms of timeline for fresh graduates, in China, there are 2 fresh graduate recruitment season. One is in autumn, one is in spring. And for autumn one is usually start at the so from end of July and until I would say December. So that's an autumn recruitment season for fresh graduate, and that is the most important one for fresh graduate. If the company still didn't hire enough people, or they have some job reopened, they would publish to the fresh graduate in the springtime. That is usually after Spring Festival time. So it's from March to June. So that's the second season. And I guess in the UK, it's you also have this autumn season, and sometimes the people will re-advertise during springtime. So that is quite similar. But for the Chinese students, if I say focus on the master students, I would say the best strategy is when they join the university in September or October, then straight away start to apply for the jobs in the UK. And then if they still didn't get a job in the UK, after they finish their course in June, then they can start their job application in China. In that case, they won't miss the any of the job recruitment seasons for both countries.
Okay, so when we're talking about these seasons of hiring, I think my next question is, obviously in the UK, in China universities, I understand that everyone will begin in September, whereas in the UK, we have entrance in Coventry University. We've got people who start at various 3 different starting points of the year. We have January entrance, we have May entrance, as well as the September entrance. So if they're graduating at a different time of the year, so perhaps they're graduating early in the year before the summer season, would that have a big effect on their application process, do you think?
It's usually when a company opening to fresh graduate, they will have a period. So like this application or this season is aiming for the students, for example, like this autumn, they would say the graduation time is between September 2020 to July 2021. So all the students graduated within this period that you can apply for this season. But of course, the company's policy can be different. Some companies, they open to the season open to graduates from 2 years, and some companies only open to 1 year graduate period. So it depends on the company. Yeah.
I think this was also a good place to bring up a discussion that we've had before about the recent change in rules for graduates or Chinese graduates working in the UK. I believe now that it is possible for Chinese graduates to work for I believe it's up to 2 years in the UK on graduation.
Yeah.
How would this affect them going if they have to return to China after the 2 years working in the UK? Would that be seen as a positive to have the experience of working in the UK, or would that confuse things somehow?
So I think it has pros and cons. For the students really want to work in the UK, that's certainly a positive news. So they have more time to look for jobs. But I always want to remind those people, like, if you want to go back to China, like after 2 years, after I think it's a PSW, it's 2 years or 3 years, if you want to go back to China, then you really want to do your research thoroughly. You need to find out whether this experience is really compared to 3 work experience in China. Are they really it's compare or relatively better? Because my conversation with HR is if they are recruiting experienced high role, and one person have like experience in the UK and another one have in China. If their skill is similar, they probably prefer to hire someone in China, because number one is your networks, all the resource. It's not only about your skills, it's also about resource. Who do you know? Your clients. That has a geography limitation. And another thing is the culture fit. Can you fit in a team, a local team in China? That is a question mark for the people who had experience in the UK. However, that is limited by my conversation with HRs from FMCG and HRs from banking and HRs from consultings. But for certain area, for example, the asset management, because for asset management, more and more asset management company is looking for someone who have investment experience in multi-markets, and for UK, your finance area is more in advance, and if you work in a UK investment company, then you probably have access to more variety of finance markets, and your experience would be really valuable for those local companies. So then in that case, yes, UK experience is better. But be aware, like, if you worked 3 years here or 2 years in the UK, when you go back to China, you can't join the fresh graduates. You will compete with the experienced people. Then I would say do your research, talk to the HR or the hiring decision maker in the area you really want to apply after 3 years. Ask their opinion, because it's really depend on the situation. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm not giving you a lot of absolute answers, but yeah, that's
yeah, that's perfectly fine. I think sometimes it's good to know that there is no concrete answer to these situations, and that reminding people, students, and not just students, but any staff or career staff in universities in the UK, who no doubt already are aware, but it's important to try to understand that there are major differences. And as you said, research and finding good advice is important. And as you say, your focus is on from I understand, your focus is in business specifically. And so we're not looking at perhaps jobs in engineering, jobs in arts, jobs in the health and life sciences, or any of these other areas. So it's a massive area, and we appreciate the advice that you are giving. So let's have a look. As you say, we're looking at preparing students and students potentially working in the UK, but I want to think about what the students are doing within the university during their studies that might put them in a best position to work. So while you've mentioned already internships being quite useful, and in the UK we're often taught about joining societies and clubs and other groups that could help show some of our employability skills. So how do those internships or extracurricular activities help you or help returning students to find work in China?
It's certainly really helpful to include in your extracurricular experience, society projects you've done during your study, group assignment. All of that experience would be helpful on your CV, because you are basically giving more evidence to the recruiters to say, okay, I have the skills you're looking for, and all of the skills need to back up with evidence, and those evidence can only show by facts, the stuff you've done, achievement you delivered. So I recommend, if you join society or doing any group work, try to take more responsibility, have a high level of involvement. Don't just attend the event. Don't just attend. Try to take a leadership, take ownership, and deliver results, deliver achievement, and that can really show your skills. Only attending it's not enough to show, provide this evidence. And compared to the majority of the UK recruiters, I would say, especially for private firms in China, those companies are more practical, or they have less money of training students. That is why some of the Chinese recruiters would value internship experience more than extracurricular experience. Not all of them. I know, for example, Unilever, they equally value both. But for some private companies, local companies in China, they would prefer to see relevant internship or work experience on students' CV. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. And we've already touched on the benefits of, or the difference between working in China, working in the UK. Is that the same again for internship? So would they value an internship in the UK or over an internship in China, or vice versa?
They would value internship in the UK, or any valuable experience, as I said, extracurricular experience. If you have shown you can deliver result and done great work, then that is useful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And would it matter which society that you're joining?
I don't think so. It's a matter of the quality of work you've done.
Mm-hmm. Good. So as you've come into, I think I want to continue about, again, the students who are going through the university process and the support that's available for them. In your role, do you have people in your team coming to you for advice about working with Chinese students? Have they faced any difficulties? As I'm sure I know that some of the staff at Coventry University have approached me about some Chinese cultural difference with the students. Mm-hmm. And in your experience, has there been something that you, or some general advice that you would, or guidance that you would be able to show to or share with people in the industry, careers coaches, people within employability teams who are maybe not so familiar with working with Chinese students and preparing them for their employment in China?
Yeah, I did give my team some training sometimes about Chinese culture, and I think what your organization is really helping to help your team to understand that part as well. Yes, we do see some common phenomena, not all Chinese students, but some common ones, like lack of engagement or interaction during the class, or they're quite quiet, they don't like to maybe ask questions, or and feel really uncomfortable dealing with conflicts. They probably keep quiet or just smiling, try to avoid the conflicts, and that is quite culture thing, I would say, as collectivism. Try to don't show individual as much as I think the Western students. That's quite common. So I would say my suggestion is first understand and try to, especially for one-to-one coaching, because of the high distance power, the students may see us as a teacher or authority. So they probably be very like when we give advice, they will just nod and say yes, instead of really asking more challenging questions and go deeper with the issue. I think for us as a coach, like I probably just to ask them the probing questions and try to sense the very minor, like non-verbal signal, and to really ask, is this really what you want? Instead of accepting they think everything, they seems like everything is fine, but actually maybe beneath it's not. And also I think it's try to be more supportive. Actually, I think that like the university or the people I've met in the UK are doing this quite well, really support people and try to encourage them to show their opinion, to show their ideas. And when they feel they're in a safe environment, then they would be more comfortable to share their opinions. And that give them advantage compared to the local students in China. That confidence is from, you know, they are okay with the environment and they want to show their ideas. They can do critical thinking. So I think that's part of the advantage of study in the UK compared to study in China.
Great. Okay, so I think the last big topic that we want to be discussing is obviously over this year. Through COVID-19, we've seen massive unemployment. There have been lots of people losing their jobs, and no doubt this has had a massive impact, certainly in the Western world, about recruitment. So China obviously has its own approaches towards COVID. China seems to be several months ahead of most Western countries in regards to recovery. My understanding is that a lot of China is more open again. So could you let us know a little bit? I know that you've looked into this. So how is the job market in China recovering at the moment?
I think it certainly showed some recovery from China, from the job market. Like I get some data from the 51 Job, which is the largest recruitment website in China, and they in April they published the data about their position posting numbers is recovered to 80%. 80% of the numbers in 2019. So that is a massive recovery, I think. And in May, the numbers of job posting has increased by 10% as well. And in the industry that hit by COVID-19 heavily, like real industry and logistic industry, their job posting has increased in May as well, which is 18% and 15%. So that is a positive sign that shows those industry are recovering and they opening the positions again. So. Yeah, certainly, I think the job markets based on the data is recovering slowly. I think even it's quite rapidly. And for some roles like operation in internet industry, education, online education especially, and healthcare, they have showed it's not affected by COVID-19 as much as other industries. So their recruiting numbers is even like keep increasing during the COVID-19 period.
Okay, thank you. We do have a question, and again, if any of the audience do have further questions, please let us know as we are coming towards the end of this session. The question here is, do you feel that students who develop the confidence to explore, refute, share with people of authority Are those qualities welcomed by Chinese companies, or are they only available advantages in Western business?
No, I think that is it's definitely welcomed by Chinese companies. Of course, the state-owned company, some particular state-owned company might see that as a disadvantage, but again, I would argue the confidence and willing to show their opinion is doesn't equal as rude or difficult. It depends on how you do it. I'd say you can do it in a polite way, and but willing to have the confidence to show you something you care about, and to show you probably disagree. It's certainly valued by both Western firms in China and also private firms in China, and some state-owned and government. But you probably need to do it in a more subtle way in a state-owned company, because their hierarchy is much higher than the Western firm and private firm in China.
Okay, so just in case we have some people in the audience who are not very aware of the differences between state-owned and the private companies, could you just give us a little bit of an explanation about this?
So basically, in China, there are different type of companies. For startup, Western firm, private firm, these companies, it's like on the market is I would say it's a like normal companies, but state-owned companies and government, public sector, these are the organization. It's protected by Chinese system, so it's really like for government, it's no way you can lose your job unless you did something illegal, but it's really hard for you to lose your job. And for state-owned companies, they usually in a monopoly industry, they are really protected by the system. It's for example, like China Mobile, it's for the other company who wants to compete with them, it's really for like a Western firm, it's impossible to join that industry in China because the government has controlled that industry, and within that industry, there are like very few numbers of company. They are not really competing with each other. The CEOs are doing this year they probably do the CEO in this company, and next year they move to next company. So there is not real competition in between the companies. So the business is really well protected, which means they don't need to worry about their business. And the people there is probably spend more time to how do I say this? Because the resources is from up. It's not from the market, not from the client. So the energy is about maintaining the relationship with up. So it's a relationship maintaining, which requires the people who work there has high emotional intelligence, and to understand these like rules, but not being talking about rules, understand that well to make a good career progression. So it's a slightly different skill set. But there are also state-owned companies, like lots of bankings. They are in front of quite a big competition. Then that might affect their working culture. Yeah, that's
great. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for all of the giving us so much of your time today. I'd like to spend a little moment to talk about what's coming up next week. But while I do this, if anyone has any final questions or about the China job market, or preparing students for work in China, whether they are returning Chinese students or Western students, this is your chance now to ask them. So next week we are going to be joined by two of our volunteer Mandarin teachers, Suo Mengya and Wei Feng, who will be discussing their experience of living in the UK over the past year, what they found surprising, and I'm very curious to find out what they found was weird about British people. very often we look at what's different about Chinese culture, but I am very interested to know what would be unusual or what's the surprises about British people. And in the meantime, you will be able to rewatch this Chinese Corner as well as all of our previous Chinese Corner sessions online at confuciusinstitute.coventry.domains/news. That link is available also through our Twitter and through our central pages. So, Noah, I think just to finish off, if my final question would be, is there something that you particularly have found strange or unusual about British people since you've been living here for over the past 3 years?
At the beginning, I have to say I'm not very used to how polite the British people are. Like people are constantly saying sorry, and I was like, wow, what did I do, or what did they do? I didn't realize like what's the sorry about. But now I start to appreciate this politeness more and more, because I think that really make everyone's life a bit easier. Yeah, I really start to appreciate that. But at the beginning, I found it's the politeness I'm not very comfortable with. There are lots of things that I found it's very different. For example, the distance between people, like expectation. If in China, I remember when I was on the train, and there is like the train, when you need to leave the train, there is little like the place you need to take, and there is a lady who is doing the luggage, and there is a half space. So in China, I would pass. That's no problem, you know. It's maybe have a little bit body touch. That's okay. That's so normal in China. But I did the same thing, and that lady gave me a really, really angry look. It's like, how dare you overtake me? And I was like, oh my God. So that's something, yeah, I found that's quite interesting.
Okay, so thank you again. I think we're going to leave things there. It is just about 1 o'clock. Thank you very much again for your time. And perhaps if we get some feedback, we might invite you back to in for future sessions.
Cool. Thank
you everyone for joining us. And well, goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye.